And Germany will increase its humanitarian aid for the Palestinian Territories by 38 million euros. Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock made the announcement after talks in Ramallah. She later met her Israeli counterpart in Tel Aviv, and she told reporters why Germany is calling for humanitarian pauses instead of a ceasefire.
The impulse of wanting a general ceasefire is absolutely something I can understand, but part of the truth is to look at how a ceasefire of this kind could happen, and how Hamas, which attacked Israel on the 7th of October, how they will behave in this situation. Thus, with reference to Israel's right to defend itself, the question arises as to whether Israel would be able to continue to protect itself against illegitimate attacks, because we recognize that Israel has the right to defend itself, but at the same time we want to ease the suffering in Gaza. And this is why we are so vehemently calling for these humanitarian pauses in fighting, which make it possible to at least end human suffering for that time.
I'm joined now by DW's political correspondent, Thomas Sparrow, for more. Thomas, we just heard there German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock again explaining why Germany is calling for humanitarian pauses, but not a ceasefire per se. Why are we seeing her explain herself here?
Well, first, it's important to stress that Germany is not the only country differentiating between a ceasefire and a humanitarian pause.
Indeed.
That said, Germany has indeed been asking for humanitarian pauses, in plural, as a way in which humanitarian aid could enter Gaza. The idea why officials maybe are against a ceasefire right now, not necessarily in the future, but right now, is because they believe that that could strengthen Hamas's position in the war. So there's also this idea that it's urgent to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, and that a way in which that could happen rather quickly and without the need for a formal agreement, a formal ceasefire, is by implementing these kinds of humanitarian pauses. So that's why you're hearing German officials, not only Annalena Baerbock, but other politicians as well, distinguish between a ceasefire, which is a formal agreement, and a humanitarian pause, which would allow aid to enter Gaza.
And can you give us a sense of how much political clout Germany actually has in the region, and how much they could possibly affect what happens in this conflict?
On its own, probably limited influence, but Germany does not necessarily act alone. Germany is an important member of the European Union, and as such, it can have clout when it comes to trying to find a solution to this. And that's also one of the reasons why Annalena Baerbock has been traveling not only to visit the Palestinians, also the Israelis, but other areas, countries in the region as well. It's a third trip, actually, to the region since the war began. For Germany, it's important to also have the chance to explain its position, because it's a position that for many here in Germany may be clear and straightforward. Germany is very clearly supporting Israel. That has to do with Germany's special relationship towards Israel, Germany's historical responsibility, the fact that Germany believes that it's very important for Germany to guarantee Israel's security. That, again, may be very clear for people here in the country, but not necessarily for countries in the region, Arab countries in particular. So for Germany and for Annalena Baerbock, when she travels to these countries, it's important to explain Germany's position and explain that on the one hand, Germany is clearly supporting Israel. On the other hand, it is also calling for Israel to comply by the rules of law, to guarantee that civilians are not attacked, to guarantee that aid can enter Gaza, and so on. So these are the two sides of Germany's position, if you will.
Now, and just briefly before I let you go, Thomas, given that background and given Germany's special responsibility toward Israel, how is this conflict being discussed here in German society?
It's being discussed a lot. You see several protests from both sides, from different sides of the conflict. You see that it's also something that's being discussed widely in German society. You see that people are concerned about the conflict. That's something that several polls have revealed. You see that people are concerned about the impact that it might have here in the country as well when it comes to increased numbers of anti-Semitic cases in the country. So there is certainly concern. People are looking at this conflict in detail, and it is something that people are looking at how it can possibly be resolved. So all this debate about humanitarian pauses, ceasefires, and so on is also something that's being played here in the country as well.
Thomas, thank you so much for that analysis. That's DW's political correspondent, Thomas Sparrow.